will follow him.
It's 8:46. This is the Breakfast Show on News Talk K-57. Hi, Ray Gibson at the in the lobby area of the Guam Regional Medical City. Now, as I understand things, it's not all just medicine here. I think this is going to be a photo store. For pictures, I don't know, of the patients. And then down over in that direction, there is going to be a gift store. So you can buy your GRMC, pretend scrubs or something like that. And then next to that is going to be Clifford and Dave, I guess, are going to be running a little cafe. So that you'll be able to, because you'll have good coffee here. I know where they're getting it from, so I think everything is going to be all right. And anyway, GRMC, and I remember it was, I don't know how many years ago, we were all together in a conference room at the Hyatt. Pete Sgro called a number of people in a number of different disciplines from a number of different industries and said, medical health, access to care on Guam sucks. And we've got to do something about it. This community has got to come together and do something about it. Now, that group became the plank owners, but there were some changes. People move in, people move out. Other people are brought into different expertises and things like that. But I will always be proud of my involvement in those first several meetings of the Foundation's group, Peter. And thanks very much for bringing me in. And thanks very much for doing something about healthcare here on Guam.
Oh, this is a really exciting day, Ray. I think you know that none of us that were involved in this, we don't even own one tile here, and there's an awful lot of tiles in this building, but just wonderful. What a wonderful day.
A lot of reasons to be excited up to and then including the end of a fairly long road. And it was long, I think, unnecessarily because there were a lot of people that, despite the fact that it was common knowledge, knew that we've got some healthcare issues here. Millions and millions of dollars exported from the island for medical care in the Philippines, in Hawaii, in California. And we thought, wouldn't it be great if we could keep everybody here? And there was a surprising number of people that said, no. There's nothing wrong with what we've got. We prefer the status quo. A lot of battles like that needed to get fought.
One of these days I'm going to write a book about this whole thing. Yep. And talk about some of those battles. But, God, it was really well worth it. I think that of anything I've ever done in my life, this has got to be one of the tops.
Well, it brought together a number of people, and I remember some of the folks that we'd originally talked to about coming and doing some work on Guam, and some really good people at that. And then focus has changed, and I can't really remember how it was that you got hooked up with the Medical City family and the Benzons. Do you remember how all of that started?
Oh, you know what? It started with about a year's worth of travel, Ray. I mean, first it started with, the Ingata family that sold hot dogs for years.
Yes.
And made us so healthy with their beautiful hot dogs every single day. They had a son that was an orthopedic surgeon that worked in a small farm town hospital of about 120 beds, and I wanted to get an idea of how it was successful in a small farm town. So that's how it began. That's how the journey to learn about hospitals started. But I literally visited at least 30 hospitals, not just around the nation, but in Korea, Japan, and then after Japan, of course, the logical then southern area was the Philippines, and that's where we met.
Yeah. And to say the rest is history would be kind of an understatement, but it did put things in motion and get people moving in the direction of, and finally somebody that says, yeah, we'll do this, and it's in line with our corporate plans, and plans that include if I get a chance to talk with Margaret a little bit later on today, plans that also include them opening up almost simultaneously another facility out in the Middle East.
That's correct, and in fact they're working on a project as well that they have a hospital that just recently opened in Clark. They're now doing some due diligence for another hospital in Vietnam. So their expansion plans are wonderful. But, out of all of this is the first to be built. And I'm just so excited for the people of Guam. And when we lose $60 million in healthcare dollars, and I know for me, Ray, and a lot of us that have families that do get ill. I mean, it's common knowledge that you are able to get better when you're surrounded by family, friends, and I just couldn't be more proud for the people of Guam. This is just wonderful.
Well, one of the things that pleases me is even though neither one of us or anybody that was in those original planning committee meetings, we don't own any tile or rebar or pretty acoustical ceiling whatevers and gizmos and gadgets. We don't have any claim to that, but I'm so pleased to hear that they dedicated a special room to your mother and father.
I'm very touched right now. I wasn't aware of that, and when I walked in greeting some people, Margaret Benzon said, "I need to see you," and we wanted to get a little bit of exercise, so we took the steps and walked into the chapel, and lo and behold, I see a plaque that says this chapel is dedicated to my mom and dad. So they were the inspiration for this thing, and
I know your mother more so. I mean, I remember it was Auntie Nang and her last days.
Yes.
That really inspired you to say we ought not to be satisfied with what we have. There's better.
Well, after 3 months of my mother being at the Guam Memorial Hospital, not just seeing my mother, people in the hallways, I'll never forget when the funeral of my mother, coming back to my living room and taking off my coat and just pretty much yelling, "We're better than this." I didn't know anything about hospitals then, and I said, "We're going to build a new hospital."
With that kind of certainty in the meetings, that was the thing that people, we're going to build a new hospital, and what do you guys think? Where's it going to go? What's it going to look like? How's it going to be run? What would the models be? All of those things that nobody really, not one person knew the answer to, but we all had a pretty good idea where we could find those answers. There's another hospital that you want to build. Now that this one is all done, and we're doing grand openings, the Archbishop's here, the governor's going to be here in a little bit, and the Congresswoman, and I mean, we got the big, the hoi polloi, as they say, right yards away from where we are here. And on this occasion here, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about what you are going to be doing at the Liberation festivities tomorrow that we are doing specifically for healthcare for veterans.
Correct. Just because we're finding out after our first 2 council meetings that nobody seems to have any idea of how many veterans we really have. And I don't know why we have voter registration drives to see how many voters we have, but we never had a voter registration drive to see how many veterans we have.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but I really think that the veterans, and I like to say this, and I'm going to say it a little slow, they don't deserve good health care. They have earned good health care. And, it's going to be the same energy, Ray, surrounding myself with some very talented people. I think you know me well enough that, ego-wise or anything else, with the people that are surrounded by me, I pick an awful lot of people that are smarter than me in healthcare and architects and everything else.
In this case, you've got yourself surrounded by some of that expertise that are also veterans, so they know about guns.
They do.
They know about those kinds of things, and they're not to be messed with. And especially when they come in and we have these meetings, and they talk very specifically, very emotionally about some of the issues that they have with their access to health care here on Guam. And you know what? The same holds true. We're better than this. We can do better for our veterans. But it's a lot of steps that need to be taken between here and there. So number one, let's find out how many veterans we can say we would be responsible for here on Guam, and then use that argument to be able to convince the Veterans Administration and voices in Washington, D.C. that would need to align with ours so that a facility here could provide that care outside of the normal VA systems. That's the tricky part of your equation. And I don't know that it's ever been done.
No, it's never been done. This has never been done. And, the department, actually, it has been done with the Department of Justice. Our District Court of Guam is the first district court ever.
But there's such a big difference between a district court and a hospital. I mean, I get it and say, well, if it works for this piece of real estate or this real estate transaction, it should work in medical transactions. And it's a big gap that we've got to fill. I'm not saying it can't be filled. I'm just saying it's a big one, and we're going to need to start shoveling data into it as quickly as possible.
Well, I'll tell you this way. You know me well enough. I don't like to do boring things. Life is short. These are the type of things that I enjoy doing and passionate about it. And again, this is not all about me. This hospital was built by a lot of good members of our community. I do want to say one thing that I think is very important, and especially to our elected leaders, is that don't wait. Don't wait until it's open. You know, we need support now on this Veterans Hospital issue. We don't need a resolution. Nobody needs an award. We don't need any recognition. Help us. Show up with your entire staff and help us register as many voters as we can, because we're doing it with private sector funds, and I think that the government should kick in and VA should kick in.
When are you going to be doing the first of the registration drives, Liberation Carnival, tomorrow, right? Where?
It's going to be right in front of Agana Proa, and I understand you're going to be broadcasting near there. So
actually, we're broadcasting from the shop. It's near there, but we're going to be doing it in the studio tomorrow. We can just control things a little bit more from that vantage point. But we will be in there, and I will find you again tomorrow morning so that we can. Yeah, so we make sure that that we've got the note from you to veterans and their families to come out and make yourselves known.
Definitely, we really need that to happen. One of the main reasons we need it to happen is once we get that accurate number, we'll be able to go to the next stage for purposes of counting beds and other things that are needed to build a hospital.
Gotcha, Pete. I'm going to let you run in there and see if you can take a position of honor amongst our other guests outside.
Thank you, my friend.